All right. Hi, everybody. Okay. Hi, everybody. Today's Tuesday, November 13th, 1 o'clock. This is our special meeting for the Board of Trustees budget. Do the roll.
We'll call the roll. Mr. Crandall?
Here.
Mr. Mahoney?
Here.
Simcoe? Here. Mr. Janoway's not arrived yet.
No, he's tied up.
Oh, he's tied up. Okay. All right. I didn't know that. Okay.
All right. How about we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Always keeps me awake this time of year, so
yes.
Hopefully
I'll do my general overview of the township, and then we'll talk about each department. But as you know, the trustees have always been concerned about falling revenue, rising expenses. So I always look at what we can do to be more efficient, to raise our revenue and lower our expenses. It's hard when you have levies, but there's places you can find. And over the last 3 or 4 years, we've really been trying to be more efficient and cut anywhere we can. These budgets, I think, convey that message to the trustees that we've held the line on expenses, and luckily we've had a little bit more revenue coming in. We always, whenever a department wants new money for a new line item, they always have to justify it and tell us why, and then we go through their line items and look at where we can cut. I think when Imran and the department start talking about their actual budgets, you'll be, I don't want to say pleased, but you'll be okay with results for this year.
Hard to please.
Yeah, hard to please. 2019 looks like a good year for us. I think we're going to be able to continue the township services that people expect and yet be cost efficient with the dollars. So with that, I'll turn it over for the police department will be our first hearing, and I'll turn it over to Imran, and he'll go over the revenue projections, how he got them and what they are, and then we'll have the police department talk about the expenses.
For the general fund revenues, basically the taxes, well, most of the figures which we get is, are we talking about police?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. I thought we were talking about general.
General goes last.
Okay. If you look at the revenues, really the majority of the revenues just come from through the taxes from the county auditor. And basically we get these things in October, for which you have already certified the tax levy rates. Basically, if you look at their taxes, it has gone up by 3.1%. And so based on those projections, the entire budget was prepared. And total all, I see that budget heads are basically, overall, it has increased 4.1%.
And that's including
salary.
And that includes the union negotiated raises in all the budgets for 2019. I'd also like to point out that if you look at the police department's operating cash, our original budget from 18 to 19, it actually went up. So we're starting the year in 19 with a larger cash balance. And as Imran said, the property taxes went up. What percent was that?
3.1%.
3.1%. And that's basically because of the revaluation that the auditor did last year. We are now reaping the benefits of that because the real estate out in the township is strong and is reflected in those revaluations. And with that, for the specifics on the department, I'll turn it over to the chief if you want to talk about your personnel and your different line items. That you don't have to go over each one, but ones that you think the trustees would be interested in, why there's changes or up or down or.
Real quick, did we bake in the raises in our last? We've typically not done that in our budgets.
We have the last 2 years because we had normally we don't have a 3-year contract that had
right.
the raises.
Okay. Right.
2019, we're still under the contract, and the raises are built in those contracts.
Very good.
So,
Thanks.
19's the last year.
That's correct.
This is it. Okay. Got it. Thanks.
Chief?
Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. I guess I don't. Again, you don't want me going through every line item and all that kind of stuff. I know when we sat down with Imran and Vicky and stuff and Nancy, we've gone through all this. we tried to realistically look at everything you had, and I believe if you compare it, was it this year's to last year's, was it like around 100?
The portion that we
The-
control, which is a smaller portion than the entire operating budget, but the line items that we control.
Yeah, I mean, obviously salaries, that sort of stuff is contractual.
Sure.
We were roughly in the neighborhood of $100,000 less than we asked for last year. So from that standpoint, I think we're really, trying to toe the line. It's my first time here in the budgeting, but we're just trying to be realistic, trying to be sensible about what we're asking for. Some of the bigger items, actually one of them we're kind of getting in the tail end of this year. Some big items that we have are the fuel pump issue we're having right now that we have to replace. It's just too darn old. That's quite pricey. We're trying to look at vehicles. This year we got a fair amount of marked vehicles. Next year we're going with a few less, but we're going to get some unmarked and only one marked vehicle. So we're trying to look at our fleet, the age of that. It's hard. Ideally you'd like to have like maybe a one-third thing when you replace your fleet each year. But it's tough because you try to base it on the mileage of the car and, when you're going to reach your mileage. And unfortunately, lately here, we've had a little rash of some accidents. We're losing some cars.
Are we losing the Crown Vics or are we losing the Taurus?
That's the miraculous thing. We just lost the Crown Vic, which was our oldest car, which is one we were going to replace. Somehow the ones we're getting crashed up are the Tauruses and the Crown Vics. We haven't lost an SUV yet, so knock on wood on that one. So that's the bad. The good news of the accident part is it's the cars that we're going to be retired anyway. It might have a little bit of an effect on. We were going to move one or two of them down to our community services and base a couple out there that were older, but we won't have that option now. But those are our main big ticket items for next year. I think was cars. I'm trying to think. Other your basic stuff. Obviously, you got to have your all your other expenses that go with running an apartment with your building maintenance and some of that. We have some issues that we'll be looking at down the line. I know, been taking a look at the back part of our building, and I know you're going to want some projections for like capital improvement stuff. We're having some building issues in the back with leaking and where they added that sort of big annex thing they added on out the back however many years ago. That we're getting to a point at some point here in the next few years we're going to have to address some of those issues, some parking lot issues perhaps. But right now we don't have any major, huge, what I would call over and above the norm expenditures that we're asking for. Like I said, we were able to hold the line and ask for significantly less this year than we did last year. So I think that kind of says it all right there.
So you've got budgeted $150,000 for your capital improvements. That would cover for the pump, lift station, the pump.
We're actually going to be able to get the pump in right now this year because it just went down and officially we can't use it now. We're going to get that on some money we had left over from this year, and we're getting that done in the next few weeks here. So that will actually be on this year's
2018.
budget, right? Yeah.
And one last question I have on this. Where is the budget monies for the building maintenance? I know we've got, is that the capital improvement fund for the police?
Yeah,
Where's that at?
that'll be your last
It
page.
should be your last page.
We had a few issues, and again, we're getting 3 of the doorways we have in back that we're having significant.
434.
I'm sorry?
434.
Okay,
Which
thank
is
you.
the last page.
Okay, thanks, Emma.
Yeah, the flooring. And that one, the flooring right now is one we have to tackle. When they did the original floor inside, back when they did it, they did not do it correctly in terms of removing the old tile. So now all the tile is popping our whole floor up.
So we got 608 in there right now, so we're good there.
Yeah,
We try to keep the capital up. In years that we can, we put money into the capital, so it's there. If something comes up. I'd like to point out also that this budget originally, we did some quick two-stepping on this because we originally had the 2 resource
2
officers.
SROs, and I know Imran took those out for the
For if the school levy had passed, we were going to hire 2, and the school would pay us for that. And then we'd showed in the revenue, but since that failed, we went back real quickly and changed those figures. So those are not in the budget.
And we did build in some extra for some hiring costs here because we're going to be 2, possibly 3 here at the beginning of next year. 2 for sure, possible 3rd. We're waiting to see.
That's replacement for retirements.
Yeah, for retirement. That's for retirement. So I'll replace. But as far as the little extra cost that goes along when you have to put on the testing and backgrounds and hiring for physicals and stuff. It's not earth shattering, but we've tried to build that in as well.
And I think, once again, long-term, you're looking at a significant number in the next couple of years.
We are, in the next probably 5 years, significant, I mean, double digits, because we have a whole group that all got hired in 98 or the mid-90s and stuff, that in the next 5 to 7 years will get their 30 years, and we'll have a big turnover. But that's something we'll project down the line and try and stay on top of that.
Is that within the next 5 years, you're saying?
Probably in the next 5 to 7, where it's really, I mean, we could be looking at 12, 13 officers in the next probably, not including what we're doing right now, but even beyond that, probably 5 to 7 years when they all come into their 30. It's nice to have a nice experienced workforce now. The problem is they're all going to be retiring about the same time eventually. So hopefully we should have we get, some more in here now. In the next couple of years, we'll have a decent mix of, 6, 7, 8 years before we really lose a ton. That we'll be able to have some officers with some experience in that.
Are your cars in capital or?
Yeah.
Look at, I don't know, let me look at the headings here. Account number, it's about page, well, the pages aren't numbered, page 3, tools and equipment. It looks like we really bumped that up, but that's not cars.
Which one?
Which one?
Page 3,
It's Fund 209.
210. Account number 51430.
210 is the fire
50.
department.
No, he's talking of the sub-fund 209.
No, no.
51, what was it, 51,430?
Yeah,
Tools and equipment?
but that's not cars, you're saying, or
Oh, okay.
you're jumping from 20,
2150.
I think 20 was the budget this year.
Because right now the appropriation is, we increased the appropriation throughout the year by 106,902. So basically, already, so that is based on that actual, we put it around 115. So the budget was 20,
Portable
but we
radios
increased
and
it to 106,902 with the supplemental appropriations.
And the reason that's going up is the chief can.
Big part of that right there is what's
That's
our
my
whole
question.
portable radios.
Not the number, I'm questioning, what are we doing there?
Yeah, that's portable radios is where that's a biggie right there.
Okay.
We got 56,000 for radios when we throw in batteries and also MDTs. Unfortunately, the technology Motorola is doing where they've stopped supporting it. We have to get the new. So we've been we bought I think 10 or 12 new radios this year, and those are like $5,000 a piece. So that's where that 115,600. Why that's so high? That's for the primarily portable radios, batteries, antennas, and MDTs. That's the big bulk of that.
There's really nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
Those radios are so expensive.
Well, we're looking at a budget number that must not be, that must not be where you're at this year if you bought radios. I mean, are you at 20,000 this year?
No, that's
No,
what
no,
Imran
no.
was just saying. We
That's what I'm
supplemented
saying,
that
we're
this
not-
year for what's the total? for this year?
20 was budget, we increased to 106,902. So
106.
126,000 we have already spent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah, but see, we're looking at a budget number
No.
versus
versus
actual.
actual.
And when they went to go actually buy them,
Yeah.
they were supposed to come out of 209, so we had to do a supplemental appropriation to buy that equipment, because it really didn't belong in capital projects.
The radios.
Basically, it's radios.
It's actually,
Right.
it was a
Yeah.
transfer as
Yeah.
opposed to
Right.
an appropriation, right?
It didn't come back from your capital projects. It was, remember the rifles and the tasers?
Right, no, I thought we just transferred the money from.
No, we
I would also like to point out that as you know, the police department is levy funded, and their last levy was in 2004. And we're not looking at another levy for many years in the future, maybe, I'm going to say at least 5 or 6 more years, 5 years more, I'll say that much. It could be more. So we will have gone from 2004 to probably 2023 without a levy for the police department, which I think shows true accountability for those tax dollars to go that long without a new levy.
Oh, that was,
Hey, Paul, real quick, I know that I'm going to speak on your behalf, but I know he's mentioned many times, Nancy, how you and Emron, how for Paul's first budget, how you guys really hammered away and helped him out a lot. So Paul was beats his chest about you guys and what you did, so great job. And Vicki, I don't mean to ignore you either. Okay, I'm done with the police.
And my role in there is going, when they come in with going, what?
Are you good? Police good?
Yeah, I'm good for now, but I'd like to,
We're not voting on anything tonight, right?
yeah,
Right.
I'm assuming, I think last year we got it ahead of time before the hearings. You did the hearings differently, though.
Right,
I think you split them up 2 days.
right.
When do you have to have
We plan on passing it, was it December?
First week of December.
so we've got a week or so if we see something,
You have 2 weeks.
get back with you.
Yeah, and we would like you to. But it'll be December 4th is what we're planning on. If all else fails, we can always go to the 18th. So we'd like
Well,
to,
that's okay.
we'd like to get it done the 4th. All right, Dave, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
As they're taking their seats here, the fire fund, you remember the levy that we voted on, I think it was voted on in 14 and collected in 15. At that time, we were guaranteed, we said 6 years, but hopefully for 7. I'm looking at the numbers now, I'm going to say we're, no problem with 7, could be 8 years because of the fiscal controls that we put on the fire department, and then them taking those controls and doing the best they can, making themselves more efficient each year in that. In fact, I'd like to point out that even that we're going into the third, this will be the third year of the levy. Our beginning balance at the beginning of this year was $3,053,000 cash. We're projecting at the end of this year it's actually going up to $3,500,000. At this point, in our projections back when we passed the levy, we thought we'd be spending down. But a couple things, and I don't want to take the thunder away from the fire department, but in the transport department, and I won't give numbers, I'll let the chief do that, the transport is doing much better than we thought. The revenue coming in, the number of runs, and as you know, we had just started our second ambulance. It really hasn't had time to have the revenue coming in yet, but the chief can tell you, it's running all the time. So that's helping offset some of the levy dollars, because we're getting reimbursement from the insurance companies for those transports. So with that, I'll turn it over to
I have to go through the revenues. If you see the revenues, really, majority of the revenues are coming through the taxes and through their EMS contract. Their taxes, with the projection, did increase 5.3%, which county had indicated us. And basically, the overall revenue increased 4.2 in 2019. And overall, the appropriation increased 4.2%.
And once again, that includes just the raises
Yes.
for the union.
Right.
And with that, Chief, I'll turn it over to you to highlight your budget for next year.
Okay. I guess we'll go to capital first, which is what I heard with the police a little bit. We have some of the same type of things that the police department does. Station 4 is getting a little bit older, and the flooring that they put in there initially wasn't. They did the same thing with the tiling, so we're looking at doing some flooring, and it's the stations. A couple of stations are due for some carpet. Equipment-wise, we're doing really well. Actually, our ladder truck that was projected to be done in January is going to now be done in December. So we'll have that. So really, vehicles we're doing really well with. I don't see that we need to. There's no large ticket items as far as vehicles over the next couple of years. Maybe leasing another ambulance if we. The amount of runs that we're putting now on our backup or the used one that we got, we may have to go into maybe another lease option type thing like we did with the new one we have now. As far as dollars that we brought in, we did, as you know, we did really well with the levies or with the grants. Our EMS grant money bringing in is up quite a bit. We were able to do real well with the radio grant. That was a regional radio grant, was $784,000. Our take in that was $91,000, so we'll be, it's a 10% match, so we're not paying $5,000 a radio, we're paying the 10% match. We were able to get a FEMA grant also for SCBA's where we had $234,000 in that, or $245,000. And then we were also very fortunate to get a couple of workers' comp grants. One of them was for safety for hoods for the guys, new fire hoods. And then also with the new ambulance, we were able to get a power cot and a power load system. So as far as grant monies, we were able to bring that in quite a bit of money there. As far as we are looking at, we just put out 10 requests for background checks for part-time. So in our hiring in that, we do have some costs added in there. We do know we have one gentleman retiring in January, and we will also be in the same situation the police are in the next 5 to 7 years. We probably have a group of 25 guys that over a year and a half or so that we hired. So we're looking at that too, what our plan is going out. Now again, that's when they get to their point where they can retire, but they can also go into that drop program, so they could retire the day they make their time or up to 8 years later. So we'll have to plan for that, most definitely 5 to 7 years out. Really nothing really extensive. A jump up from this year, to be honest. The PPE one is up some. We are looking at
Explain PPE.
personal protective equipment, and with all the crazy stuff that's going on in this world, we're looking at getting body armor for the guys, because almost every day we're seeing in the paper and on the news they're shooting firemen, they're shooting. So we upped that. We're still going to try to write a grant for it, but not sure we're going to be able to get that because there's a lot of people out there asking for that money. So we did bump that up a little bit. Now on the fire PPE side, we were able to, Lieutenant Zaletta, our gentleman that's in charge of that, we were able to change some of the style that we use, and we're saving $350 per set of turnout gear. So that will help offset some of it. Anything else, John?
Well, I have a question. Do you mind?
Sure. No.
So when you look at the EMS for 2018, so when you pay salaries and everything out, it's a net 40 almost 46,000.
Okay. Yep.
That's how I'm reading that. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm assuming.
Yep.
Okay.
And that actually, hold on.
We came in. We were very conservative when we did the numbers because we just gotten into it. We didn't really know how many. I mean, when we looked at the levy, we were thinking we would do 30 transports a month, and there's been some months we've done over 90, almost 100 transports. So some of our numbers, as far as projections, are conservative.
So what we build of the two, what's the total billing as our revenue is $200,000. What's the total bill out that we? So we collected $200,000.
You know the percent we collect and what we bill, roughly? The percent?
We have collected
We're about
28%.
What is it? 28%.
So what we bill,
20% is the return.
28%.
Of that portion, 28% pay.
yeah,
And then we just write that off then as an expense.
right.
Well, for residents, we do.
Non-residents,
Non-residents do get billed.
they get full bill.
And then we
But we don't hard collect.
I was going to say we're not hard collecting.
Right.
Okay.
No. And once again, one of the problems with the revenue and expenses is, and correct me, but from the time we bill, we might not see that money for 6 months.
6, 8. It depends on what pay
I mean,
cycle they're.
eventually comes in, that 28%, but sometimes, the way the insurance works and the collection
I mean,
and everything else.
now and again, we're still seeing payments from last year.
From 2017.
This is the
It's
company.
unusual because most of them have, like, if you don't submit the bill within a certain amount of time, they won't pay it. But for
That's
whatever reason, some of them are still paying from last year.
Okay. This is the company out of Dayton, right, that we hired?
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So then do they trickle checks in, or do they give us a quarterly check, or how does that work for the incoming?
No. Vicki and I, we're pretty insistent with them that all the funds are either direct deposited to us or they come to our post office box that we have.
I see.
Because initially they were getting everything, and then when the month ends, it's still another 20 or 25 days before they would even send us our check. And we both thought, well, why should our money sit in their bank for 45 days before we get it? So we've pretty much got it to where they're only receiving maybe $1,000 a month of checks that go directly to them for whatever reason.
Okay.
Watching it like a hawk. And as a matter of fact, we've kind of shopped around a little bit to see if maybe we can get with maybe a different billing company to try to get us pull in more money. I'm just not sure they're doing everything for us we expected from them, I guess is the best way to put it.
And there's other companies out there that other entities use that we're looking at.
I mean, I personally was one of the first to, like, I think you and your team have managed this really nice with the EMS, because I was thinking private sector, and then use this as a secondary. But obviously the private sector hasn't performed the way we'd asked them to do, and I think you guys have handled this beautifully, and keep up the good work.
And we're seeing, and I'll let the chief elaborate, we're seeing that the private sector is doing less and less as far as...
and we have to service our people.
Yeah, and when we talked about it levy time, and since we put it in, that was the number one thing is when our people call 911, they expect us to be there to be able to take them to the hospital. So, I got to applaud my whole team for the budget thing too. I think our meetings with Imran and Vicki, have been very smooth, and I really appreciate it also.
Yeah, excellent. You any questions?
So next year you don't anticipate a lease purchase?
No, I just met with Al this morning, and we're looking at right now that backup vehicle needs almost $9,000 worth of work.
But you're not anticipating.
Well, John, what I'm thinking of is maybe by
I'm
the
just
end.
asking.
Yeah, by maybe midpoint, end of next year, maybe ordering one, because I'm not sure that one's gonna. If our run volume keeps going up, we're gonna kill that one
looks like
too.
it's going to, and I'm concerned that.
We put the down payment in.
Yeah, we did put a down payment
did?
for the lease in.
Where's that at? I didn't catch it.
228-230.
Give me a page. Give me a page.
The last page of 228.
228. Last.
Let's see. I'll count them.
58,000?
Sixth page.
It's 50,000.
Oh, I'm sorry, 50,000.
Oh yeah, I see it. Okay, I just want to be sure we got it in there.
Yeah.
Yes, if it happens.
That's actually doing pretty well, and I'd hate to see us have to wait.
Oh, yes, sir. Well, that's why I said I met with Al to find out where we were before we put the numbers, because I wanted to make sure he didn't say, well, we could go 2 more years and then get halfway through a year and it falls apart. Excuse me?
What was the delivery, about 6 months, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I don't think it would be as much the next time. We had a couple of snafus. One of them was a chassis problem. There was a big rental company out there that wanted the same size chassis that the ambulance companies want, Mr. Penske. And when he said, I want 500 of them, well, 500 of those chassis went to Mr. Penske, and all the ambulance guy said, we'll get them when we can get them. So that's why some of the time frame, John, that's why it was
okay.
a little longer than what, actually, Chris and Chief Nye and I were down at the factory a couple of times.
I think your whole department's done a good job.
Thank you.
The levy projections are good. I think the equipment's on schedule.
Yes. We just got to keep the buildings up again.
Manpower's on schedule, and you've done a nice job.
We have some.
And now it looks like we may be able to go longer.
Yes.
Which is
Yes.
very important.
Chief, maybe you should, I don't want to speak for the trustees, but look, it seems like there's quite a demand, for our EMS services.
Yes, sir.
As we know, when we started it out and we continue, it's the private sector's contacted first, and then it's us, and we're not trying to take business from the private sector. But I think that what we've been finding is they're kind of getting a little bit out of, to some extent, not as interested in this business, And so we represented to our citizens that we would step in and fill that. Because
sir.
previously there were waits, and we were transporting sometimes ourselves, taking our equipment out of service. And so now we're doing this, and it's a great thing for our citizens. But maybe if our other vehicle, when you talk to Al a little bit more, maybe if our other vehicle is starting to limp a little bit, if that would go down, or we would have some downtimes, and we're still getting the volume of calls we're getting, we'll be, we just may need to look at a little sooner. I mean, the trustees' decision, but
Right, and that's why I said we wanted to add it in there. We just weren't. I mean, we had just came and got a new one, so for me to come back within 5-6 months, say I need another new one, we were trying to stretch to say maybe towards the end of
it might
the.
be better to provide the service, and then
Sure.
we could have that one as a backup vehicle if we really need
Oh yeah,
it.
that would be my plan. Would be to have 2 new ones and then the backup one, and the backup one actually would help us at special events, the football games, and those type of things.
Exactly. See, and then we would be really be able to service the citizens. And the nice thing about this is we're not like losing money on it. I mean, we our goal is to break even.
Yes, sir.
And there's a little extra money trickling in, so that's a good thing for us. And and then when you look at, usually the things we do oftentimes kind of cost money. The services that we're providing, picking up the leaves and things like all these things. But this happens to be one of the few things that we can do that makes us a few dollars. But the goal is providing service to the citizens, getting out there, probably one of the worst times of their lives.
Absolutely.
And so, but if we could push it up a little bit, I don't think the trustees are sitting here thinking that, well, geez, we just bought 2 of them. Well, so we're
Okay.
providing
Well,
good service.
Okay. Well, like I said, we're trying not to overwhelm the budget right away off the top. So.
Do you think if the EMS county contract, are they talking about that at all? Any issues?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I just was at the policy board meeting last week, and what they had talked about was with the jail levy going down, the fire chiefs were very concerned that
That's what I heard.
Mr. Gherkin had talked about taking all of our money, and we met with his right-hand person, Matt Hireman, after the meeting and said, we're not going to stand for that. We as the fire chiefs want our normal money, and we actually want a 3% increase, and we would be willing to do a 1-year contract versus a 3, so they could figure out what they're going to do with the jail thing. And we basically told them they're not taking our money.
So this is a stupid question. So let's say
Can
they
you
did.
do that?
If they did, we would
We're
definitely
gonna-
have
we're
to
gonna
do
need an
it.
ambulance, like,
We're
right
going to
now.
have to do it ourselves, yeah.
We also have
We might need two.
$40,000 in expense.
I'm sorry, Jen?
We have $40,000 in expense for a new life pack that we don't have to buy next year.
Yeah,
We're
so
just trying to get away from relying on the county to supply those for us because at any day they could stop. So we
Sure.
kinda
yeah, so
wanna have our
we've been
own.
trying to do a cycle of every other year replacing the one they're loaning us with our own, so that we're on a replacement cycle. We're not trying to buy 10 of those $40,000 monitors in the same year. Just
So
Do
we'll
we know-
probably wait till the end of the year to decide if we're going to spend that money from that budget to see where we're at.
Okay, very good.
On an editorial comment about the county EMS, it's one of the few things that county government does well at this point. For them to dismantle it, it doesn't just affect us, it affects all the jurisdictions in Lucas County.
But didn't Gherkin make a comment that if the levy failed, he had an alternate plan?
that was to
Which
take.
I took,
I think his plan was
That's
to
what
take
got
our
the
money
fire
because
chiefs.
basically he told us he has to have 2 things in the county. That's a sheriff and a jail. That's all the county has to supply.
Even though they made a commitment, but the
Right.
good news is, it takes 2 commissioners. One commissioner can't do it unilaterally.
So.
And so I think the other
But
commissioner
do we
can,
know
because
that was his
every
plan?
city in the county and township would be up in arms because just as the city of Toledo takes,
But do you know,
they get
John-
$5 million a year from the EMS.
do you know that was his plan, was to take away EMS?
I heard that a couple of years ago, but I have not heard.
I haven't heard it.
I haven't heard that brought up lately.
Well, I sit on Lucas County Fire Chiefs Pro Bono Board, there's 4 of us that are operating chiefs that have met with him several times, and he's told us that a time or two. So,
Like you and I talked about it.
Yes,
yeah, we
Like I
talked
said,
about
he
it.
has to have 2 votes. I don't.
Or wouldn't we need two, let's say he did that.
Well,
Now you've got to
if he did that
I don't
right,
know
if he
what
did
kind of
that right
shape-
now, we would need 3. But I don't. If they were to do that, the one life squad that we have,
Well,
I
don't
can't
know.
imagine them.
We have a fairly new squad, don't we?
Life squad, county squad, yes, it's fairly new.
So couldn't we get,
Well, we would have to. They would have to allow us to have those. But
I
then
don't
again,
want to think
they,
about it.
huh?
Said I don't want to think about it.
Yeah, me neither. But we've been. I mean, the chiefs have talked about it. We've had our round tables, and like Mr. Zeitler said, Toledo Fire is. They are not going to be real happy because they have 6 of those life squads. You know, that is a ton of
well, they
money.
got some other equipment problems too.
Well, yeah,
But other than Maumee, Springfield, everybody, would be hurt by that.
I will.
Especially when the commitment was made, and I was at the county at the time, the commitment was made that roughly 2/3 of that sales tax levy that was put on back 25 years ago, I can't remember, was for EMS. That was the commitment that people voted on. And to change that at this point would just be...
Yeah, it was 1992. Vote yes
Seems
for
like
EMS.
Seems like yesterday.
Yeah.
Now, your projections in here, what did you do for health insurance?
15%. We're coming in probably around 18, but we're going to look at that. But we have, in all the budgets, we have built in 15%.
Yes.
We used to do 10. Now
Right.
We're up to,
Yeah.
I think we really need to take a hard look at that going forward.
Didn't we just approve that last week, though?
Yes.
Yeah, well, that was 14%, I think.
Well, when we take them all together.
I get it, but I think when we project that, in my mind, we're sending
Right.
the wrong message. I think we should be looking to get that down.
Well, one of the things, and we mentioned
Easy
this,
for me to say.
one of the things we mentioned at the trustee meeting was, possibly looking in the future, what we're trying to do is to get more people into the HSA, because that saves money. It saves the township money, it saves employee money, but there's just that reluctance of going into it because you're used to a traditional plan. It pays for it, and so you pay it up front. But everybody that is in the plan in the township, and I think it's like, I want to say 40-some people, every one of them did not reach their deductible last year. So it made money for those people. It saves the township.
But I don't think we had that breakdown on your sheet,
No,
which is one of my questions.
right. Well, we really didn't have the breakdown of who spent what. We just
Yeah.
had totals. But we know they didn't hit their deductible.
Well, we know it was in there, but we didn't
Right.
see it.
And that's one of the things to save money, and we kind of get off track a little bit, but the increase, when we say that increase, it is claim driven. It's people using medical, and then the township pays their 90%, and the employee pays their 10%.
Well, we
But,
can't.
and these prescription drugs, I mean, it's no secret. They once again, I'm editorializing, but you see these commercials on TV where people have eczema or psoriasis and take this pill. What they don't tell you is that pill costs $3,000 a year. And they don't tell you that. Go to your doctor, get prescribed this, and let the township pay the $3,000 a year for that pill. And that's some of them are much more than that.
It's a general comment, but it applies to all our budgets. We can't just be doing 15% a year.
Right.
Something's gotta, I don't know how we go about that, but that's a general comment
Right.
I have. We gotta get a handle on that. And I'm not trying to take anything away from the employees, but we can't keep eating that, even though our revenues are going up 3
Oh,
or
right.
4%. We can't be. So we got to do something there, in my opinion.
Okay, any other questions for Fire?
Good job.
Thanks,
Chief.
guys. Good job.
Keeping things in line.
Thanks, John.
I didn't bring any reinforcements. these guys.
This is the costly meeting for us all today. With you here today, Rob.
I do have something to hand you. This is kind of just what's baked into the budget already. It's my capital equipment,
Thank you.
capital projects, and it does cover 19, but also it's a 5-year projection as well.
Once again, I have Imran give the revenues and that, but basically, once again, we had a pretty good year in the road fund. Rob watches every penny. I mean, I see him sometimes on the street picking up pennies and back to the township. We began this year with $3,542,000 in cash. Our projection at the end of this year will be $3,432,000, about $110,000 less in cash, which is good in that, the only money he gets is from his, he'll go over, but his inside millage. And then our projected balance for the end of 20 is actually going up again to $3,500,000. So he's holding his expenses in 19. And basically over 2 years, his cash balance will not have changed much. So Imran, his taxes coming in, and his tax is what they call inside millage. It's not voted on. It's a tax that the state puts on for. They call it inside millage because it's not voted on by the people, and that's where he gets his revenue.
These funds get majority of the money through the real estate taxes coming from the county. The millage, not the real estate, because this is just a levy. And then this time, if you would see that he has got another item, he's doing a storm water utility project, which he's expecting $275,000 from the county, which makes his revenue goes up 11%. And overall in Texas, he's up 2.7%. And overall his appropriation went up just 1.9%.
So he's
Which is very good.
doing a good job.
What project are you doing for $275,000
No,
No, this is just a county.
That's-
that they're giving us?
That's
The county.
reimbursement.
Reimbursement.
I'll let him talk.
Yeah, that's a reimbursement for 2019. We have our normal OPWC project that we seek to go in with partnership, usually with the county, and they help us with the road mileage and the counts. That gives us a better score on the project. That portion of that money we request is about 34% of the actual project cost. In the last couple of years, they've given us a full loan or a full grant versus a loan grant, but we apply for a loan grant versus just a pure grant because it gives you higher points and you are more likely to get a loan grant than just a pure grant. But if, depending on the state's funding and how we score, sometimes they bump that up. Even though we only request a loan grant, they'll give us a 100% grant. And that's happened a couple times. So for this year, for 2019, for our local share, we're anticipating $589,000 project. Now we have to budget for the whole share of the project because they could come back and say, well, we're only going to give you a grant or we're only going to give you a loan of a certain amount. So when we request it, we request the full amount, and a lot of times that changes throughout the year depending on when we get the contracts back. 2 years out is when you put in the request for these projects. So 2019's project was signed by John 2 years ago requesting this project and to move forward. So that's where the money comes from for the OPWC share. That resurfacing project is the Wolfinger Road project, Bancroft Woods, and Stonebridge condominiums. So that would be, Wolfinger Road is going to be a little bit more expensive because that is a more than just a typical mill and fill. They're going in and they actually will scarify the road, spread it out, widen it a little bit, stuff like that. And so that increases the cost. The non-OPWC, which we typically do 2 non-resurfacing projects, that project came in at an estimate a little bit higher as well than normal, or the last, I wouldn't say normal, the last couple of years at $553,000. That project also increases the total length of 2019 to over 4 miles. So 4 years ago, I had my first time around, I had said that we need to increase our mileage of resurfacing, start to steadily increase it to meet the rate of the deterioration. A lot of roads were built in the early 2000s, and now they're coming to due for resurfacing. So we want to increase that mileage overall, so some of the cost of that is going to increase as well. So 2019's budget does reflect an increased cost on road resurfacing and repair. So if you look at the detailed list I more or less gave you, that is what we submit to the Ohio Public Works Commission for funding. And it gives you a 2-year effort as well. So you'll see on the second page of that 2017-2018 efforts. Basically what we did. Those are actual numbers. Those aren't estimates. And then it goes out. You guys don't have a copy of that. These numbers are already baked into this budget process they have submitted to you. This is just more of a detailed. So if you want to take a look at that and you have any questions later, and it's a 5-year projection, so it does show 2019's projects. In 2019's and 2020's projects costs are very are a lot more accurate than the 21, 22, 23s, because those obviously a lot of the materials and costs change.
Hey Rob, is there a correlation between oil prices and per tonnage of asphalt?
Yes, everything goes off of fuel price. So asphalt there's a lot of oils and emulsifications in asphalt itself, and also it's cooked, it's baked with natural gas or oil of some sort, and that cost can fluctuate too.
So my question is, if you had, let's say, per tonnage of asphalt is less this year than next year than this year.
Right.
So would you ever change up your schedule and say, maybe I don't want to change a bunch of manholes out, maybe I should do some more paving?
We do
try to save money on on paving, the repair work.
We can kind of look at the forecast and say, oil prices have been pretty stable the last few years, and with our budget overages that we have, our revenue that we have in there now, I don't foresee any issues with the amount of change. I don't think it's going to dramatically change that much.
Okay.
The estimates that are given to us by the county generally are high, and the bids that we receive are generally lower than the estimates the county gives us. Not always, but most of the time they are. So those costs that are baked into those numbers that the county gives us are based on years past projections and how accurate they have their own system of coming up with the estimates. But so those are the 2 big projects for next year. There's also some smaller projects that are in the budget as well, some internal ones. We're encumbering the project for the resurfacing of the parking lot this year. So our parking lot back here.
Who's low bidder today on
that? A parent low bidder would be Allied Paving.
I ran to Steve Dolgen at lunch today. He asked me if I knew, and I said I didn't know.
Yeah, they ranged from 98,000 to 135,000. So you can see the widespread of certain, depending how aggressive a company wants to be on the bid. They can either get it or not. And that's for next year. The actual project will take place next year, but we are encumbering the money this year, so you won't see that in there. There's also some drainage projects scheduled. We'll seek reimbursement for majority of those projects. And Vicki, if you want to explain how that works, 'cause it goes through the stormwater utility. Or if you guys are interested.
That's the 275, right, on revenue?
Some of it is reimbursed. The county sets aside, we ask them to set aside $50,000 a year for us from the stormwater utility monies. And we do in-house projects with that, or I can take small contracts up to $50,000 for the whole year. Other than that, the county leads when we request a project being done. Say we want the 10-mile creek done, and hopefully that will start this year as well. The county leads the project. They pay for the project. They do everything, and it basically comes out of our portion. They show that Sylvania Township paid out, so much money for this project. So in their annual reports, you'll see all the townships that contribute to the stormwater utility money, and how much the residents, and how much was spent in those townships, and the projects that was. So, speaking of 10 Mile Creek, they are supposed to be starting to take trees down this winter.
Nice.
For the
When the
project.
bats aren't there.
Yeah, when
What's
the
that?
bats are.
Once the bats show up, we can't cut a tree.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Amazing.
So those are the projects, the capital equipment that I'm requesting 2019. If you look at the capital equipment sheet, you'll see on the left side it says tag number. That is a truck number and then the year of the truck. For some reason, multiple trucks were bought in 06 and 07, but they're all 07 year trucks. So now those trucks are starting to cost more to repair than they're worth, so we're going to start replacing them and systematically replacing them and spread them out so they're not all in the same year. We're not like the police department. They can buy 4 or 5 vehicles for the same cost as it takes for one of our trucks. So, they can spend $200,000 on 5 cop cars, and that's just one truck for us. So, and that is the chassis upfit and the chassis and the upfit, that price.
I like it. Thanks for thinning that out.
Yeah, it needs spread out.
Yeah.
From my understanding, that process happened when there was a refund given back to the road department from a loan that the fire department had, and they used that to purchase new trucks. So they
Before my time.
Yeah, they went out and bought a bunch of new trucks all in the same year. So, the other piece of equipment would be the air compressor. The service department's air compressor is on its last leg. We've been kind of nursing it along.
$10,000 for an air compressor.
Have you tried duct tape?
Yeah, the air compressor was here before. Gary Carruthers, the service manager.
No, it's all good. I'm just.
And
wow.
We estimate it's a 1990. Sure. We're not sure though.
You might go into your operation, your personnel.
Yep, I will submit at the end of the year. I'll submit my annual report. But on your very last page, you'll see it says Appendix C, because that's the Appendix C for the annual report. That's an estimate of the cost of one utility worker at full rate. Should be your last page. You should have one.
Which one? Which back?
The very back of the sheets I gave you.
This here.
Yeah.
Or is there, do they have yellow on those?
Yeah, it should have a yellow highlight on it.
Oh, I see it. Yep.
You got it, Neil?
Appendix C, it's the last.
I do not, but I'll just cheat on
No, it
you.
looks like this.
Oh, it's on
You
that one?
got that one? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Last sheet of that.
Thanks.
I just slid that in there because I will be requesting an additional authorization for a utility worker.
And this is an additional.
This is an additional to the one utility worker that will be retiring. So next year we'll have the service manager retiring. We'll need to replace, and a utility worker that will be retiring that we'll need to replace. But this is an additional one. I haven't officially put the request in, but just to show you the numbers in my annual report, you'll see those numbers in there as well. And that's at full rate. So when we hire, it's a three-year process on their scale. So I'll have 2 new utility workers coming in, if approved, at a lower rate than the current full scale.
That's in the budget that you gave us? Or not?
Yeah, no, it is in.
It is.
It is in the proposed.
Okay.
Can you briefly describe why you need the additional utility worker?
Well, as we discussed last year, the road mileage is increasing. The pressure that's being put on the current staff to maintain current services is very high. We've contracted out as much as we possibly could contract out without reducing services even more. So if we want to maintain current service and a current level of service, which I think we provide a good level of service in the township to the residents, we will need to increase our staffing. In 2008, it was decided that the staffing levels of the road department could be reduced from 21 to 14 total numbers. So that went from roughly 12 utility workers to 7 utility workers. When that decision was made, the majority of the roads that were being built were fairly new. All the infrastructure was new. The trees were small. Most of them didn't even have leaves. So what we find now is that these developments that were built in between 2000 and 2015, they're needing serviced more frequently. They are now requiring leaf pickup and other services, brush pickup, plowing, and the road mileage has increased from about 123 to 132. I know we've had some annexes, but we're building at a rate where it's kind of keeping pace with the annexes, even the future annexes. So to maintain our plowing services and everything else, I'm going to request this next couple months to increase the authorized strength to maintain current level services, because it wasn't really taken into consideration in 10 years down the road. So in 2012, we completed the reduction of forces. So from 2008 to 2012, you either retired or somebody had quit and they just didn't replace them. So now our utility workers are at 7. We currently have 5 routes in the township for plowing and salting. It takes us approximately 12 hours to plow a route. I'll provide the study that I did in my annual report that shows that the Sylvania Township Road Department, compared to all other townships with our type of municipality as far as mileage-wise and structure, that has a full-time staff, has more mileage per individual utility worker to maintain than anyone else, to include the city of Sylvania. To give you an example, they have 85 miles of roads to maintain. They have, I think it's 9 workers, city workers. They call them street workers. So, their turnaround time for their services are a lot lower as well. So they can do one utility worker there can do their route twice before it takes us to do ours once. So what we do is, over the years, we've increased our salt, so it helps stay on the road longer. We've done everything we can to make sure the level of service looks the same. But we're at a point now where it's tipped the other way, where we're getting complaints. Roads aren't getting hit in a timely manner. If we hit your road at 8 o'clock at night and it snowed all night, by 2 o'clock in the morning, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, it could be 6 inches thick. You get up to go to work and it looks like Sylvania Township's not been by your road. Now, obviously, when you get home, it's clean, but it didn't help them get to work. So, just to keep it a little shorter, I suppose that's what the majority of the reason I believe we can increase our strength at least by 1, and see where that takes us as far as a level of service. Originally, I was looking at 3 additional, but I think if we take it in steps, we add 1, see what changes come our way, how the economy is, what the revenue looks like, how we do as far as our service, if we can break that some of our routes down to 6, still get the guys coming in. Because as of right now, we're really dependent on the contract that these guys come in. They can turn down the overtime. They cannot answer their phone. Then we're relying on contractors that I have to call in the middle of the night and ask them if they're willing to come in, which would be temporary employees through temporary service to get in our trucks. But as of now, the utility workers are more than willing to do their share, and they have in the past really stepped up and came in the middle of the night and worked long shifts, multiple long shifts.
Hey, Rob, kind of like, first of all, I don't disagree with you. I'm supportive of what you're doing. Two things kind of came to mind. One is there was a direct correlation in the fire department by us hiring more people this year. We've saved over 6 figures in overtime. Okay, that's one thought. So, number 2, the thought would be is just like the fire department, they have these volunteer firemen. Is there a pool of Tim McHugh just called me from ODOT. Orangey? Mm-hmm. Orangey called me and says, "Hey, Neil, I'm looking for a job. Do you know any? Is the township hired?" He'd be a perfect example of a guy that's retired from ODOT, Sylvania Township resident that could maybe drive a plow if we needed that extra space where we had our own pool of volunteers like we do in the fire department. Have you ever thought about that?
We have used our retired employees. One of the key issues is not bringing them on as a township employee. We would employ them through a temporary service, so they would go to a temporary service. They would basically be in a call list of mine, like the current ones are. I have 2 of them that are my backups. If I can't get somebody to come in, I call the 2 retired guys. Now they're hired through a temporary service.
You're paying 20%. You're paying 20% grease on that.
Yes.
So why would
we don't pay any other type of benefits at all? Workers' comp, any of that stuff, it's all handled through the temp service. So they are at a lower rate. I think if we did the math on it, they definitely are getting an hourly rate lower. So if I hire a guy at $12 an hour as a Class B truck driver, it costs us $14.50 through the temporary service per hour. So the employee's getting 12, but we pay the temp service $14.50, and that covers their, whatever insurances they may get through them.
And I'm not saying that's the rest idea either, because I don't want, we got a bunch of guys driving around town that don't know where they're going. But it'd be nice if we had an old retired pool of a couple,
Yeah, the county, that's basically how the county runs their pool. They call all the retired guys in.
Well, that's only if they can't get a
Yeah.
response.
It's only if we can't get a response too. Fortunately, I have not had to do that. Our guys step up. They work the overtime. But I do have those available. I've worked that out with one of the local temporary agencies, and a couple of guys that did retire signed up with them. They do come back for leaf season as well.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So right now I have 2 temporary employees. One of them's a retired utility worker here from the township. Was here for 34 years, and he's driving a leaf truck right now.
Okay.
So they do know the routes. That helps. It wouldn't hurt to have 1 or 2 more on board. Certainly, I can always look at
I
that.
got a guy who'll give you a call this week.
Okay.
You know McHugh.
I probably would know him if I
He's
saw
an
him.
ODOT inspector for the last 30 years.
Really?
So, yeah, you see him out on the jobs.
Well, I've noticed, Rob, what you're saying on some of our, sometimes the city just is faster than us, and you had explained that to me, that in my neck of the woods, right, I see the roads and that, and I think our guys do a great job, but we're just kind of sometimes undermanned, and we can't keep up. And then some of those guys driving 12 hours, that's a lot. And that, so I think we could ramp up our response a little bit.
Well, it's probably been a year since I looked at this
Yeah.
with Rob, and we're different than even the city or county. They got long runs,
Yeah.
and the city does the primary streets.
Yeah.
And I live on I don't know what number to be, but they never get to our street. We hire
Right.
it done privately
Yeah.
because they can't get to it.
Yeah.
They're on Monroe Street, they're
Yeah, they're
on
doing those things.
Erie Street, where when we go out, we're on residential streets. And we got cul-de-sacs, we got cars. You just can't make the time
Right.
that the city or county can do.
Rob, are you saying?
I really think we need 6 routes.
Yeah, are you
I'm
saying?
sure.
Yeah, are you saying we should wait till next year for this for 19, or is this something you want to implement before the end of the year?
Well, I'd like to hire start the process at the beginning of the year. I usually try to hire in the summer, so they have all summer and spring and summer to learn the routes, learn the equipment, and they go through a leaf season, which helps them with the route, and then you get them trained in the winter. In the report that I'm going to give you at the annual report at the end of the year, it'll have my whole process laid out when I want to hire, explaining what I want to do with the service manager and when to bring him on, and that's basically would be my request then.
And I like your approach, bring on one, let's see what difference it makes, and then we'll go from there, rather than jump in.
All right.
Well, if
As always, Rob, great job.
you want to go through anything else, if you got any questions on a lot of these numbers that I gave you on those sheets are baked into here. It's just you'd have to go through the fund accounts to look at them and see where they're at. Did you see any increases or anything?
The one, even though it's a large increase, but it's small, is when I was talking about the cemetery road we have to redo out there.
Yeah.
For the first time in a long time.
I don't know if it's ever been done. The road resurfaced out there at the cemetery. Since the first initial time it was Stone Road, I'm sure, at one point, but it's fallen apart.
Well, that's 20-some thousand. 23,000.
Well, I'd like to try to hold off on that if we could. There's not many, when we get annexed, we can't really cut back because we're building new roads at the same time. That, we might lose a mile or two, but we're gaining 3 or 4 miles a year, and we're not keeping up with that. On fire, it makes no difference. On the annexation, but police, we can't cut back. So I think the cemetery is one thing maybe we could consider getting rid of.
Well, the current ORC requires a township to have a cemetery. We have to have one
We have to have
by
one.
law.
I thought we could, if it
As far
was
as I am aware.
I thought if it was.
I think there's another provision, though, that
The city's within the township.
if it's
No,
completely within the city.
I think if it's completely within the city,
Yeah.
I think.
I think we should get, if that is the case, we should probably get some sort of ruling or judgment
Oh, we would.
from the county on that.
I
And
think
ask,
we are.
because it is, it's completely in the city of Sylvania.
Why
I think-
why don't we have our council?
I think we should pursue that, but I'm saying in the budget, I'd like to hold off on spending the bare minimum on the cemetery if we can, because if we can give it to the city, I personally think that's one place we could get rid of some expense.
John, could you maybe
Sure.
you guys
Yeah.
talk to the prosecutor, have them
Yeah.
research this
Yep.
before we put out any money.
I
Sounds
will.
fair.
I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Good point. All right. Thanks, Rob.
Yep.
As always, great job with this.
Next one up is the general fund. I know we always worry about the general fund because we spend more than we take in. We're trying to control that as much as we can. This year it's going to be a little bit confusing when I explain it to you because in the general fund in 2018 we had the TIF dollars, and those are dollars that come in and out. And basically, I'll say inflated the general fund. In 2019 we've taken the TIF fund out. So it looks like the general fund went down a lot, but basically it's because we are no longer, the TIF was $290,000, so that's no longer classified in the general fund as a revenue or an expense. So what we're looking at is the general fund with the TIF removed, starting the year at $7,015,000 and ending the year at $6,445,000. Now, I know that seems like a pretty good sized drop. I'm worried about it, but we're doing all we can to control that. In 2 years, we will no longer have a $90,000 expense for the senior center bond issue that the township agreed to pay for the senior center building out of general fund dollars in 2 years, right, Vicki?
Yeah.
In 2 years, that bond issue will be paid off, so we will no longer be paying $90,000 out. Some of the other areas that we have agreed to do in the township to help the residents is Rob cannot use his dollars for the brush pickup and the unlimited pickup, and the general fund picks those expenses up. Those are not mandated, but they're a service that the residents have come to expect, and it's something that trustees provide to their residents. Other than
Sorry, senior centers through 2022.
3 years.
3 more years.
3 years, sorry. With that in mind, we go through and we, try to cut expenses as much as we can. As Trustee Crandall mentioned earlier, health care, going up 15% is a big hit for any fund, and especially the general fund. And once again, as you know, the general fund does not have a operating levy. We only get the inside millage. There are a lot of townships, people have voted on an operating levy for the general fund. We don't have that here. In zoning, we have a good zoning director and a support staff of 2 part-time people that go around and try to keep the township looking good. I mean, once again, it's a cost, but it's a service that I think the trustees enjoy, seeing a nice, I'll say, clean township without rubbish, without vehicles in people's front yards and that. I know if you go to some other of the townships out in the outlying area, you drive down the street, you can't believe the stuff in people's front yard and that. I mean, it's an eyesore. We control that here in Sylvania Township. Our fiscal department, we've saved a lot of money there with the staff. In fact, let me back up a second. Let Imrod give you the percent numbers and the dollar amounts that the general fund is actually going down this year.
Yes. The taxes went up by 5.46%, and the overall revenue went up around 4.1%, or 3%, around 3%. And if you would see, the only thing I want to discuss is in this administration department, we did increase debt appropriation went up by 12%. And if you see, I can tell you exactly the reasons where they are. If you go to 101, 112, 51319, computer services software. Are you with me? That is the only area in.
I'm not, Emron.
Okay.
Sorry.
What's page 1?
It's 101.
Page 2, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right, man.
112,
But I don't see the,
101, 112,
51319,
51319.
319.
Page 4 of the packet.
oh, I'm on the wrong.
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
Yep, thanks.
I mean, debt appropriation we have already increased from 60 to 81,000. So that is the reason we budgeted 85,000. And one of the reasons was the new software and the monitors and some of the contracts and things and salaries, things like that. So that is why this category shows a little increase in the administration. But other than that, I mean, and the total we came down 7.1%. I mean, in the total grand total, the appropriation went down 7.1% as opposed to last year. So, other than that, really, I mean.
So we're trying. We've heard the trustees, and we're trying.
Well,
Squeeze every penny we can.
I thought last year maybe I'm wrong, but I thought we said, let's try to get it in balance within 5 years.
Usually, this fund doesn't get. I mean,
It doesn't sound like we're on that schedule.
Well,
I know that's tough.
I know, but I would say I've heard from the trustees that, you know, the unlimited pickup, the trash, is something that that's $300,000. I can balance the budget, but
Could we go to one?
that's, once again, whatever you decide, but at this point,
I mean, we do 2 brush pickups. Well, I think if there's a storm,
we do another one.
we do another one. But normally we do spring and fall, right?
Right, and then we do an
Could
unlimited
we get
pickup.
by?
We
I
do
think Springfield only does 1 a year. Could we look at that, or?
We can look at anything I mean,
Well, I don't know how I just feel, it just bothers me to have a deficit every year. I think we either got to figure out how to increase the income or something.
and that's what I mean, you know, I guess I'm sometimes daydreaming, but, you know, we lost $600,000 a year in inheritance tax.
Yes,
If we had that, I'd be sitting here trying to hide money. We also lost local
But we're
government
not the
fund. How
only
much was
ones.
the local government fund reduced?
but the
Do you have a
schools
number
got
out?
cut
Have you had
back,
the
the
last
city.
4 years. Just throw a number out.
Do you
But
think
we
that-
lost local government. I mean, reduced local government funds tremendously when the state just said, well, we used to give the township X dollars, now we'll just give them
And now
X minus Y.
they're sitting on plenty of money.
Right.
But do you
So
think,
that's
do you think we're gonna? I don't think we're gonna see any money coming back to local government. So we can blame the state, but to me,
well. I'm not saying
we should be doing.
I'd like to. I think I could see us getting something.
Interest, I mean, we will be getting more. I know with whatever I'm investing, but that's just a portion. But in
But we're
coming
looking
years,
at
if the economy keeps like this in 2 years, that will go up.
But our balance is going to go down about 800,000. From we got to start.
Right.
I don't know if it's cut back services or I hate.
Well, that's about the only place. Like I said, but in 3 years we'll have 90,000 right off the bat.
Yeah,
That will save.
I know what happened
And
to us,
we
but
don't wanna-
still, do you think? I don't think the state's going to give us any money back to local government.
Well, maybe we could wait and see, with the new governor, what's going to happen. Kasich at the time was, bound and determined to build a rainy day fund and cut a lot of the local government funds and that
Exactly.
to do that. Now, there are some people around the state that are, complaining a bit that the rainy day fund is up there, and
It's way
some
up
of those monies could be, way up there. Some of those monies could be restored. Now, we're probably not going to be getting maybe what we got, but there may be some monies coming back, and so it might be
worthwhile for us to maybe wait for a year and just see what develops, with the new administration. And then, but the other thing is I think John's saying, John Zeitler, is that basically the general fund, we have a lot of service like the brush pickup, and I just think to myself that if we would cut some of those services like brush pickup, I mean, we'd have hell to pay on that, I think, as trustees, because, people come to expect that. Now maybe someday, in 5 years or something, we would have to say, well, explain, and I hate to use the word, maybe a levy or something to fund those things. If people want it, then it's like the EMS service that we have. We sold the fire levy that we were going to, that was one of the things we were going to do. And then people could have voted no on that. Well, okay, then we wouldn't have done it, but at least you give them an option, to consider whether they want to pay for it, because as we all know, nothing's free in that, and it costs to do these things. And but maybe we wait and see what happens in a year, and then we have to start making some hard decisions.
Yeah, but I think, I guess.
One of the things, is the residents expect a service. I don't want to pat my back because everybody's involved with it, but you'll remember about 4 years ago we did Christmas tree pickup, and actually had our crews go out and pick up Christmas trees and that. And then what we did is we put a area over here in the parking lot, fenced in, and people brought their own. Right. Well, the first year we got lots of complaints. Why aren't you? They still take their Christmas tree out to the curb. Things got picked up. Last year we didn't get one complaint, and that filled up probably every couple of days. It was full. I mean, people are they're used to that now. So maybe in time, if
Well, we could
one of the things, not to interrupt, but one of the things, it could be either Springfield or one of the townships out there, instead of going around and picking up unlimited pickup, they bring dumpsters into their site, and people can bring the stuff to their dumpster.
Yeah,
and
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
We could have one pickup.
General pickup this year, it was up significantly. It was up by $12,671. It was almost $60,000 this year.
For unlimited?
Yeah, I think we've got to ask the administration, Rob. What bothers me is last year we said, let's have a 5-year plan to get this back in balance. And even though the senior levy is going to go off, that isn't going to done. We've got to.
Well, yes, I mean, to really move the meter, we put 500,000 in the road department.
Yeah, no, that's what we're saying.
Well, I'm just saying that's a big contribution to what most townships do.
But but we're putting it in.
I'm not saying what I'm trying to say is, like, I think Simcoe's saying also is, with the swoop of a pen, we can get back into budget pretty quick, and we still have, and the people out here expect to pay more for service. We still have a lot of money in the account. We have more deposits in the general fund than anybody in Northwest Ohio. I'm not saying I'm saying it's got to be part of the plan. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not saying we need to swipe out the pen today and get this figured out. I think we need to make sure
But a year passes and we haven't.
Well, we didn't.
I mean,
you're right.
yeah,
I'm not
the
disagreeing.
TIF went away, but that's.
Well, that was just the in and out. That was 290. That doesn't count.
That's an in and out to begin with.
So the revenues actually look less than what they actually do because it's 290 in, 290 out.
Right. I guess
So
I'd like
that's
to
a swap.
see.
And actually, it's probably nice. It's less labor than you have to do. I'm glad it's done. Right?
I think it's $300,000 that general fund transfers to the road department for leaf and brush. In addition, we talked to a handful of years ago. We started giving road, police, and fire an allocation of the interest at the end of the year based on their cash balance. So that was what, $114,000.
we can stop that.
Yeah, that's what I suggested because I have not seen that. But mandatory by law, we are only supposed to give to the gasoline and permissive and all.
Right.
So I have not seen that. A lot of times, general fund giving it to these.
But I think rather than solve this today, I guess I'm saying I'd like you to come back and say to us, here's a 5-year plan, and it might happen that the state will give us money again. But I'm a doubter there. I don't think I think we're done with local funds. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay,
But
There's
we
still
ought to
some
have-
there. It's just
But,
reduced.
well, but,
The state tax is gone completely.
yeah, but I think we need to take a look at getting ourselves, and I don't want to do it in 1 year.
Right.
Over
Well,
5 years.
I'd be glad to sit down and talk to the trustees, because in that 5-year plan, I need guidance. Are we talking about a levy?
Well, I personally would say, I don't know how you feel, Neil, but
Well, you don't have to.
a levy would be my last choice.
We don't, well,
I think cutting back, people got to realize that we can only do with the money we have. And I know we got a good balance. I get that. We're eating away at that balance.
right.
50,000 for road.
Yeah.
bridge,
Well, maybe, John, what you could do is, as part of that plan would be projecting those things that are, we're making contributions to other funds that we don't have to. And we.
I'll list those out, sure.
And we could see what would that do? What would that do?
But
Yeah.
Dave, rather than
Yeah.
we say, okay, we got through this year, and next year we're going to be faced, I'd like to see a report back in 9 months or something.
Well,
that
they could probably
says,
do that. Yeah, they
Here's
could
a
probably-
plan. Here's a plan to get ourselves
Yeah.
in balance. And if money comes back from the state, then
Right.
we don't have to do these things.
And I know you don't, nobody favors a levy, but the levy could, there's two possible levies. There could be a general fund levy, which we do not have, or we could put a levy on for the road and bridge fund,
But could that,
and then use
could
those
that
dollars.
levy-
Pardon me?
Could that, I don't think that levy could include brush pick.
Yes, we could, for the road fund.
It could,
Yeah, the only reason they can't do it now is because they use
Well,
gasoline and,
We've got time now.
Yeah.
It's on the radar. I don't want to have you guys start dissecting it now. I know in my head where I can get this thing balanced out pretty quickly if the time comes.
Quick note, when I took our revenue and subtracted our, it was, I think, included, but it was like around 763,000, and cut is what it would take to balance that.
Yeah.
Okay.
and if you've got a plan, maybe you could.
Well, I don't.
I just don't want to decide
This has to be done
today.
gradually.
But Scott Smith and I talked about this last year, and I quite frankly forgot to get back with Scott before he retired what his thoughts were on it. So,
we'll look at it.
yeah.
And let's set a date so we know. You set the date. If it's 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, but before next year, let's have a plan. And if extra money comes in, wonderful, and we don't have to. I think we either, I don't know that a levy would pass, but I'll leave it up to you guys. But we either got to get this thing back in balance, or we're providing more services than we have money for.
That is true. That is what is happening, really.
Yeah, and I know how it
Because it
happens.
doesn't get a lot of tax money, that's why.
State's in good shape and local government struggling.
Right.
And we
That was the
provide
philosophy.
the service.
That was the philosophy. I get it.
All righty. Well, thanks for
Okay, thank you.
the insight.
It's on the agenda. Oh, we're done.
We're done, huh? I'd like to make a motion to adjourn at 2:30.
Second,
Now call the roll, Mr. Crandall.
yes.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes.
Bass.
I brought two, but it doesn't matter.
I'll throw these in Mr. Genuine's